Hello everybody and welcome back to Reading with Grandma. Today's exciting adventure of our word window books is Born to be Wild. This is all about grizzly bears, polar bears, and black bears. Let's start our adventure. Bear cubs in the wild. Being a young animal is no easy task. Baby animals require constant care and attention. Youngsters are expected to keep up with their mothers while learning to mimic or imitate them at the same time. Romping and exploring provide opportunities to learn. Mothers teach their young about enemies to watch for, foods to eat, and hazards that lie ahead. These lessons from Mom are very important, and there is so much to learn. Let's explore more about the lives of bear cubs. This is field notes from the authors, Karen and Keenan. Karen and I have spent most of our adult life in bear country. For the last 25 years, we have photographed, written, and learned about bears. We have lived with bears in the most remote parts of the world, like Russia, Canada, and Alaska. We do not photograph captive, caged, or controlled animals. In the wild, bears behave naturally, and those are the shots we seek. The stories and photographs in this book are real wilderness adventures. These wild animals have quite a story to tell. There are 3 types of bears in North America: the polar bear, the grizzly bear, and the American black bear. Polar bears live in the northern polar region called the Arctic. They do not live in the Antarctic or anywhere in the southern hemisphere, like some people think. They live most of the year on snow and ice. Grizzly bears live in the interior of Alaska and along the Rocky Mountains in Canada and in the United States. Grizzly bears live in meadows, mountains, forests, and along the coasts. American black bears have the widest range of all the North American bears. They live in Alaska, Canada, and throughout the continental United States. Black bears live anywhere from the coast up high in the mountains. Bears are considered the largest land carnivores. Actually, bears are omnivores because they eat both plants and meats. A bear's diet changes with the seasons. Polar bears roam the sea ice in spring, fall, and winter looking for seals and walruses. In summer, when the sea ice melts, some polar bears move to rest on shore and eat carrion. And carrion is animals that are already dead that they don't hunt. They just come across an animal that has died naturally out in the wild, and they will eat it. And they also eat berries, leaves, and grass. Other polar bears stay up on the retreating ice to feed on small marine animals. Grizzly bears feed on the roots in spring. In summer, they eat squirrels, grasses, and berries. In fall, they eat a variety of berries: currants, blueberries, crowberries, bearberries, soapberries, salmonberries, cranberries, and raspberries. Did you guys know that there were that many kind of berries out there? And who would want to eat soapberries? Don't know. Don't think so. Grizzlies sometimes find sick, injured, or dead animals during their travels to supplement their diets. These food sources are not dependable, rather they are lucky finds. There is a type of grizzly bear called a brown bear in Alaska and Canada. They live near the ocean, along rivers where salmon migrate. And migrate means that's where they come home to lay their eggs or to have babies, and if they were birds. Salmon come to the same place every year to spawn and to lay their eggs. They eat so much salmon that they can grow twice as big as the interior grizzly bears. In spring, black bears feed on roots and the fresh green growth of grasses and fruits and flowers. During the summer, they eat berries and fruits. In fall, they will eat acorns, beechnuts, and chestnuts. Throughout all the seasons, they seek insects, grubs, and carrion. In coastal areas, they also eat salmon. Brown bear or grizzly bear. In Alaska, there is a creek called Great Bear Creek. Brown bears gather in the summer to feed on the thousands of salmon that come to lay eggs. In front, a mother bear, brown bear, and her 3 yearling cubs walk down the trail to the stream for a lesson on salmon fishing. And it asks you how many bears you see in this picture. There is quite a few bears. And I'll leave that picture up there, and you guys can count the bears and let me know in the comments how many bears you counted. And I'll tell you next week, before I start next week's story, if you got it right. So you take a guess at how many brown bears are in this picture. Okay. Coy is the cub of the year. When grizzly cubs are young, they have a white patch around their lower neck called a natal collar. This identifies cubs born that year called coys. Coys are energetic and playful, especially if 2 or 3 are born together. This yearling grizzly cub tries to roll its mother to have a drink of milk. We watched as the persistent cub bothered her mom until finally the mom rolled over and allowed the young, hungry cub to suckle on her milk. Cubs have a lot to learn from their mothers. They stay with their moms for up to 3 years to learn skills for survival. Brown bears are 3 to 5 feet tall at the shoulder when on all fours, but can measure 8 to 10 feet tall when standing on their back legs. Adults weigh 500 to 1,200 pounds. That's ginormous. Their fur is usually dark brown, but it varies from blonde to near black. Brown bears have wide, dish-shaped faces and a muscular shoulder hump. Those shoulder hump muscles work with their long, straight, designed for digging claws to allow brown bears to scoop out clams or to hollow out a den to rest in. Today, brown bears can be found in Europe, Asia, and North America. The largest and healthiest population of brown bears are in North America, especially in Alaska, the Rocky Mountains, and along the Canadian coast in the Pacific Northwest. Brown bears eat a lot, so they need large areas to roam around in order to be able to find enough food. Brown bears used to be spread out all over the world, but as people have moved in, the bears have had to move to wilder, less populated areas to survive. Along a river in Katmai National Park in Alaska, salmon jump up the waterfalls into the mouths of waiting brown bears. Life is good for these bears, and they grow to be very large. They just have to stand there, and the food comes right to them. It's going to land right in his mouth. Survival of the fattest. Can you guess how much Grandpa weighs? Karen and I will spend the whole summer getting to know some of the bears. This one we call Grandpa. He is the fattest bear we have ever seen. Grandpa eats 50 to 60 fish a day. So even though they cannot weigh the bear, there's no way to bring a big scale out to the wild. Take a guess on what you think this bear weighs. They made a guess in their studies, and I will let you know next week what you think. Tell me in the comments below how much you think this bear weighs. Bears are opportunistic omnivores. That means they eat almost anything. A favorite food of the grizzly bear, to go along with all those berries we mentioned, is ground squirrel. Grizzly bears catch and eat so many squirrels that people call the squirrels tundra hamburger. Would you like to try a hamburger made out of squirrel? I don't think so. The mom and cubs carefully approach the river to feed on swimming salmon. She waits her turn while the male bears fill up on salmon and move away to nap. Then she leads her cubs to the river and catches salmon for her young. Subadult bears, like the ones on the rock, are ready to leave their mother. They'll need to use the lessons learned from their mom to survive in the wilderness called bear country. Now look at this guy. Can you guess why this young bear is sitting on top of the rock in the middle of the river? Let's see. So in the comment below, along with your guess on the weight and how many bear, let's see if you can guess why this bear, he's 3 to 4 years old, so he's not very old. He looks a little worried to me. He looks a little bit scared. So take a guess and leave me in the comments below what you think this bear is doing. Red salmon, called sockeye salmon, swim upstream towards spawning grounds to lay their eggs for another generation of young salmon to be born. Sockeye salmon can grow up to be about 15 pounds. 1 or 2 of those would fill up a bear, do you think? Now we're going to learn about polar bear. Just chillin'. Polar bears patrol the edge of the sea ice where marine mammals such as ringed seals will come out of the water to rest. Seals and other marine mammals are their primary food. Do you know why this bear is rolling around upside down? Let's see, we have to turn the book upside down to find the answer. Polar bears are excellent swimmers, even in cold Arctic waters. They have even known to swim for 60 straight miles. After that, they get out of the water, they roll in the snow to dry off so their wet fur doesn't freeze. So that's why he's upside down. He's rolling around. How do you think you're going to dry off in snow? Snow is wet and cold, but they use that as a towel. There you go. Next time you're out in the snow, try rolling around and see if you get dry off. Female polar bears usually weigh between 500 to 600 pounds, while males between 800 and 1,500 pounds. With their long necks and big heads, polar bears can measure between 10 and 12 feet when standing. Polar bears have wide paws for swimming with short, strong claws that allow them to walk on slippery ice. Their fur is colorless, but appears white because it reflects the visible light, like snow and ice. Fur helps them to stay warm in the freezing Arctic and to blend in with their surroundings so they can sneak up on their prey without being seen. After 6 weeks of watching and waiting near a polar bear den, I finally saw a mother appear with her 3-month-old cubs. This was the cubs' first time outside the den, and a playful romp was all they could think about. Polar bears live on ice floes around North Pole. This area includes Alaska, Canada, Russia, Greenland, and Norway. They wander more than any other bear because their food is so scarce. A polar bear's home range can be twice the size of the country of Iceland. One female polar bear was tracked by satellite for 3,000 miles from Alaska to Greenland to Canada and back to Greenland. The diet of a polar bear consists mostly of seals, although they have been known to scavenge washed-up whales and eat shoreline vegetation. Polar bears hunt by finding holes in the ice where seals come up to breathe and wait to ambush them when they come up. Sometimes polar bears will go underwater and catch the seals from behind. Other times they will pull seals right out of the water. Seals have a lot of insulating blubber, which makes good food for the polar bears. The black bear. A black bear mom patrols the shoreline looking for any food that may have been washed up. Anything will do, as the curious animals look high and low for protein. Can you guess why this black bear cub is up a tree? Do you think he's getting away from something? We have to turn the book around and see. A black bear cub in an old growth forest has climbed a tree and found himself unable to get back down. Oh dear, what is he going to do? Mommy to the rescue, I bet, huh? Black bears have short, curved claws to help them climb trees. This cub learned a valuable lesson that getting down from the tree can be harder than getting up. Mom had to climb up the tree and show the cub how to get back down. This black bear cub changed its cry when it stepped from the tree to solid ground and romped away as if nothing ever happened. Good old Mom, right to the rescue. That's what moms do. The black bear can be found from northern Alaska east to Labrador and Newfoundland, south through Alaska and Canada, through most of the continental United States and into Mexico. Black bears are the smallest of the North American bears, weighing an average of 250 to 350 pounds. The black bear's color varies from jet black with a white chest patch to cinnamon brown, cream white, or even glacier blue. Camped in the remote wilderness, Karen and I saw this adult black bear stand and scratch his back with a willow brush. He left behind fur and scent, which communicate his presence to the other bears. Bears are not territorial like cats, canines, and other predators. Instead, they carry their personal dominance among all the other bears. Alaska is a rich habitat for black bears. In springtime, black bears like to prowl this coastline looking for rich grasses called sedges. Keenan and I like to photograph and watch these black bears. We learn something new every time we observe them. One time we saw a young female black bear feeding in a meadow. She attracted the interest of a male black bear with grayish color fur, a glacier bear. The two bears played together. The bears played together a while, then the female decided to climb up a tree. She was able to scale the tree as quickly as a person could run up a flight of stairs. Her grace amazed me, but the real surprise was when the big, chunky male glacier bear followed her up the tree. He was about to climb as fast as she could, even though he was so big and stout. Black bears have curved claws designed to climb trees. On this trip, we learned how well a black bear can climb. Some bears are lucky enough to live where salmon runs the rivers to lay their eggs. Like coastal brown bears, these coastal black bears can get quite large from all-you-can-catch salmon dinners. Black bears are mostly herbivores, meaning they eat a lot of plants. Their diets change with the seasons. In spring they eat grasses and other leafy plants, and in the summer and fall they eat fresh fruits and nuts from trees and shrubs. Black bears eat insects, fish, or small animals when they can find them, because animals are so rich in protein. They have to eat as much as they can during the summer and fall to fatten themselves for hibernation in the winter. Ferocia. Very far north on remote Wrangel Island in Russia, I found a frozen habitat where many polar bear mothers make their dens. Since polar bears are the focus of my Arctic travels and photography, this seemed like a good spot to set up camp for several weeks. With my filmmaker friend Shane Moore and our Russian guide Pashka Maryuknik, I did just that. Little did I know that we were going to become foster parents to a very special little creature. We realized that the cub's mother had probably been unable to care for it, perhaps because she had more than one cub. The cub might not have been strong enough to keep up with its mother once it was time to leave the den. We could tell the cub was cold, scared, and hungry. We were also cold, so we turned to leave. The cub followed. Back at camp, Pashka determined that the cub was female. He named her Ferocia, Russian for ferocious. Curious and affectionate, she was actually anything but ferocious. As I slept that night, Ferocia jumped up on my legs, formed a pocket within my sleeping bag around her, and fell asleep. The next morning I was awakened by the cub bawling. When I sat up, she placed her paws on my knee and looked at me straight in the face and bawled again. She was hungry. Pashka opened a can of milk and fed her by dripping it from his finger. For the next several weeks, this is how Ferocia ate. A team of Russian biologists were studying polar bears on the island. Toward the end of my stay on Wrangel, I took Ferocia and boarded the helicopter. As the biologists radio-collared one female bear and her two cubs nearby, I wondered about this mother. In the last hope to free Ferocia, I asked biologist Misha Stichov about leaving Ferocia with this female. No, he replied gently. She will kill Ferocia. Adoption is not an option for bears. Misha worked very hard to find a good home for Ferocia. Luckily, he succeeded. Ferocia journeyed to the Netherlands, where she lives today at a zoo outside Amsterdam. I have watched many bears over the years, but none touched my heart more than Ferocia. She would not have survived by herself in the wilderness if that lady had have left her all by herself. She would have died from hunger or other predators. They would have eaten her. So I hope you all enjoyed Born to be Wild, story about bears, and the beautiful pictures and photography that was done in it. Leave me a comment below on what you thought, and remember, answer the questions, and I'll let you know the answers to them next week when I read our next week's book. Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe and keep opening those books. Bye now.